Welcome to Flat Earth United, live from St Bees. I am joined by Anthony Riley. How you doing, Anthony?
Good. A bit interesting day. Looking forward to a hangout today. So, all good.
Cool. And we're also joined by a mystery guest, otherwise known as Red Rhetoric.
No, it's not Red Rhetoric. It's Sean Hufford.
Sean Hufford, how you doing?
Don't call me Sean, please.
Okay. Sly Sparkane. Is that okay?
Oh, that will do, yeah.
We all right. We have Sly Sparkane in the background.
Okay. Sly might pipe up at some stage, we shall see. So what we've been doing is measuring hills, in essence, or measuring a hill. We're going to measure another one tomorrow. So we've measured a particular hill mainly because our opponents have been, according to Anthony, disingenuous / lying about what particular height they're at when they make these observations. So, do you want me to share this stuff?
Do you want the text? The chat open?
Not really.
Okay. Well, we'll get rid of that.
So yeah, but basically, in order to establish exactly what the height Anthony Riley was at,
hang on, let's get rid of that.
We've gone back and measured it, and rather than measuring it to the base of the mound, if you want to call it that, and what we're referencing here is the point that Google measures at 29 feet.
Well, let's start with miles.
Well, what does Google say it is? Because that's today.
Google says that point that Miles was at the top of the little path. I think it said it was 30 feet.
Okay, 30 feet. So the lowest elevation, it's like a little car park, a little triangle section with some former steps which have been eroded away by the tide. So we've measured down to high tide. So I don't know, probably best if we just show them what we've got.
We need to conclude though. Let's tell them what we're going to show them first.
Okay, fine. So
we're going to show you that basically that Miles has made a claim that he was at 40 feet above actual sea level, okay? Like they were his words, 40 feet above actual sea level. He said 12 meters, but when he actually cited what his elevation was, he said two things. He says somewhere between 10, 14, maybe 15, but we'll go with a conservative 12. That's what he claims for his accuracy of his, it was basically a guess. But then what's happened is the Rumpus has seen that we went back, we've took photographs and videos, and we've got the measured angle, we've got the measured hypotenuse, and then Rumpus has falsified or manipulated the evidence because Rumpus wasn't happy with the verticalness of the vertical. And what he's done is he's changed it and put in a horizontal that he wants it to be in, called a deduced horizon or a deduced horizontal. But in doing so, he's fudged it massively in favour of Miles because it makes the angle, the measured angle, go from 20 degrees to basically 30. And that puts it back square in the figure of Miles. Now, I knew that Rumpus was telling lies, and I said to Nathan, that's deliberately manipulating the evidence to support Miles. And Nathan didn't know whether he was or not. So I said, right, let's go and do that. We'll measure that one first, and we'll get that one out of the way with. And essentially, that's what we've done. What we don't know is whether people can actually even hear us. Are we loud-wise? Okay? Yeah, we are.
Yeah, you can see the levels bouncing up now. So it's all good.
So essentially...
You can hear us, right?
Well, we don't know because we can't see chat. But he said, essentially, I knew that Rumpus was fudging the evidence to support Miles. So, and I knew he was being dishonest. And I've told him that I think he's being dishonest because he's manipulating evidence to support Miles' narrative because he's got no basis in science to do it. Basically, what I put as the vertical wasn't far off vertical, and it wasn't enough to be able to argue that he could change it completely and put in an art like this deduced horizon. Nonsense. So I called him a liar, and it's right. So we came back, and we basically threw a tape down. We measured the horizontal down to the water level where Miles claims that he was, and we know that he wasn't there, and we'll show you that in a sec. And then we measured the angle with a spirit level, right? Not a diopter app that's some kind of electronic based on accelerometers and stuff. It's actually measured with a spirit level. Now,
I mean, that's not the first thing we did. The first thing we did was like look at the actual tide. It was plainly obvious immediately that he was lying, with a glance. So that was the first thing I did. I just pulled out my phone. I think it was about 11:45. According to the tide times, they said that was about half an hour before high tide. But there's loads of different stated figures, so it's hard to know what is exactly high tide. But as soon as you looked over the edge, you go, oh right, it's much higher than claimed. So yeah. So have you got it shared?
So what we'll do, because we haven't got split screen. So I don't want to share the link.
It doesn't matter as long as you use application with it, or have you got to do the...
I've got to do the whole screen.
All right, yeah. Right.
So what I'm going to have to do here, to be careful here.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah, that's okay. So if I now share that.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so this is what Miles claims was the height of the water when he did his observation, right? Now, in Miles's video, Miles doesn't actually show this. And he says, and when challenged, originally Miles said that he didn't have this information. And then he's flip-flopped and said that he now does have the information, and he's produced it in the end of one of Nathan's Hangouts. And this is a screenshot. Now, what I want you to notice is this rock that's down in the corner and where the water is in relation to it. Now, originally Miles said that this was taken at high tide, minus 5 minutes or so. And when we checked it, it was 5 centimeters below high tide. When I first saw this, I said to Nathan, there's no way that was taken at high tide. Firstly, he didn't have it originally. 5 minutes or so. Firstly, he didn't have it originally when requested. He didn't put it in his video, and then when I asked him, he said he didn't have it. But then about a week later, he claims this is it. So he said that he didn't have it, and now he's saying that he does. And this is where he claims was high tide when he did his video. Okay, my gut reaction was there's no way that's where the high tide was, because the high tide isn't high tide. I think this was taken an hour afterwards because he needed it to be lower to support his elevation being anywhere near what he claimed, which was 40 feet above the actual water level. Now, the 40 feet above that's nowhere near 40 feet, even if the tide is right. But if the tide's wrong, then it's even worse for him, and the tide is not right. This is not where the video was taken. So that deals with the first part. And I'll show you. So this is basically now, hide that. This is us today, about an hour or two ago. We're at the same point where Miles was, and you can see this big rock is basically the rock where you see that in Miles's video. And basically, what we're showing here is two things. One,
where's the first video?
Is that not the first video?
No, that's not the first video.
Well, we've not downloaded it. Let's get it off here then. So we'll get rid of that. Is it this one?
That's the top one, yeah, that's one.
So we haven't even downloaded this one yet.
That's all right. Let's just let it download.
So while that's downloading, what's this one about? This is the show in the tide.
So this is just what we got when we first arrived. So the time was about 11:45.
11:45. Yeah. So basically, we got here at high tide, which is where Miles claimed he was. Later, he changed that to just before sunset. But actually, in his original video, he said it was high tide.
It's only an hour difference, though.
Sure. Yeah, but in that time, the tide recedes.
Yeah, but it didn't recede in that quantity for us in an hour when we measured it, did it?
Well, we were there at high tide, though. He claimed he was there like just after high tide, and then when he showed the video, this is near to the sunset, he said.
How long did you say we were out there for? An hour?
Over an hour, yeah.
Over an hour?
Over an hour.
Yeah, it didn't drop that much in the time we were out there. It was still, when I got the last shots, it was still basically lapping against the spirit level.
All right, so when this video was basically the first video that we got when we were there. Is the sound going to go through when we play this?
Probably not, but it doesn't matter. All I just need to show is what I caught from the top of that cliff.
Oh, did that go to? Did that download then?
Sure.
Play.
No, I'll just leave it to download again.
Ah.
Slick, very slick.
Organised,
slick.
Yeah, you'll have to bear with us because we haven't got the information, like all of the evidence off yet. We're sending it off phones and stuff like that. So at the moment, we're getting off the bits literally live. But we've got all the evidence to basically show that Rumpus has fudged evidence to support Miles, and there is no scientific reason to do it. And in doing so, committed a really bad mistake, basically fraud, because he wanted the evidence to support Miles. That's the bottom line. He wanted the evidence to support Miles. It doesn't support Miles. He's basically fudged it. And that's terrible. There's my notify. We'll have to wait for that.
So yeah, you'll have to excuse the semi-slick nature of this presentation. Like I say, or like Anthony says, we've been sending things via 3G back and forth, so it's not exactly a quick process. But there we go. It's good enough to do on a Hangout Live. I think it's because you minimise Skype. It just stops downloading maybe on this tethered connection.
Need the details, show it in folder. There we go.
You won't get sound.
Yeah, so we're here at the spot that Miles Davis takes his pictures from, and the time is...
That's it.
Stamping in shot.
Just trying to get this watching shot.
5 to 12.
5 to 12.
High tide is at, what is it, 12:15. So Miles is a lying sack of
Sounds
shit
like
then.
coming through now.
Because look at this, there's no fucking way that's anywhere near what he said. It's much higher.
Now, as you can see,
And this isn't even at a high tide yet.
we're not quite at high tide. Let's just get it to a point where it stops.
Yeah, so we're here at
That's it. Yeah, so
Miles
that was all it.
Yeah, but the point is, this rock is being submerged by the water, and we are here at high tide. Now, there is variables in the high tideness, but high tide is still high tide. We are basically 15 minutes before high tide.
This is something I haven't checked. Just let it play through. What I said was that rock there. I said your feet would be wet. Does it hit that rock? Oh, damn. Let's just see if it hits it. Where they were standing, you can see it in the shot. You can see the little square that they were standing on with their 16-foot pole.
5 to 12. High tide is at, what is it, 12:15. So Miles is a lying sack of shit then.
So Miles is a lying sack of shit then,
There's
yes.
no fucking way that's anywhere near what he said. It's much higher.
So the point is, right?
I wanted to. The whole point was to see if it hits that concrete. Booyah!
Pretty much centimeters, if not touching it.
That's touching.
Right, you behave, Mickey.
Anyway,
Now,
let's get rid of that.
the key point is look at where the tide is in relation to the big rock, right? So with regards to Miles's claim, this is where Miles claims that he took his photo from at high tide. And I said to Nathan, that's not right. That was taken time afterwards. And the problem is, because it wasn't in his video, he isn't going to be able to prove it because you can falsify metadata, which is the reason why I never produced my metadata, because it's falsifiable. So now Miles can't prove it because it wasn't in his video, and we can't prove it wasn't. However, we can prove that at high tide, the water level is significantly higher because it goes up and over, crashes up and over this. And basically, that's what we can prove. But Miles can't prove that this was contemporaneous because EXIF data is falsifiable, which is essentially a mistake on Miles's part because he should have put it in his original video if he wanted to be able to rely on it. And it wasn't in the video. So basically, he can't prove it, but we can prove that it wasn't. This is not the same. Okay, so that's basically Miles's low tide or high tide picture being destroyed. Now, with regard to this is where the rumpus has changed. The evidence, because he's put in this one that the tape's supposedly 57 feet in length. Now, this is a little bit higher up than where Miles's tide was, but this measured angle is going to be pretty much the same when we go further down onto the beach because all we're doing is extending the hypotenuse. Now, what he's done is he's put in this thing that he calls a deduced horizon, and I'm going to call full-on fraud, because this full-on fraud, there is no scientific reason to do this because you have a given vertical, right? You have an actual vertical in the shot. Now, he claims that that's not vertical enough. Therefore, he's put in a deduced horizontal, and therefore you can see that this 10 degrees, he claims he reckons that's 10 degrees off vertical by putting his deduced horizon in the way he's done it, and it's complete and utter bullshit. And the reason why he's done this is to support Miles, because when you do the trig, you get to 28.5, so he's rounded up to 30 based on a calculated or guessed deduced horizon. It's complete bullshit. The value is 20, nothing more. It is measured at 20. So stop fudging the evidence.
I was telling you what you got last time.
Pardon?
Telling you what you got last time, so
Yeah.
we got less.
Well, because we were further down on the beach, the angle gets a little bit, it gets tighter as it gets further away, which we'll show in a sec. But the point was, it was measured at 20 degrees on a vertical, and there is no scientific trigonometrical reason for why Rumpus would do this, other than to bullshit it to support his mate. He's put that yellow line in to support his mate, and it's fake, it's fraud, it's faking the evidence to support your premise, and there is no, because you've got to argue that this is not vertical.
30 degrees is nowhere near what we got today.
Nowhere near. So, let's see what we did. Where's the mute button on this? Turn the sound down because you guys can't even hear it. So basically, we're stood up at the top. We've got the tape measure coming down. This is the water. Nathan's walking through the water in his wellies. His feet would be getting wet. Okay?
Did it get wet?
Yeah, feet did get wet. This is basically putting the measured angle in. And this measured angle is going up the hill. This is the level. This is the angle of the hill. And now, as you can see, the angle read, I'll pause it there for a sec. Oh, I missed it. Go back to it. So basically what this is doing, this is the bubble sits in between the lines. Therefore, that is horizontal. That is your horizontal. Rumpus, you can't change that because it is horizontal.
Oh, I see why you wrote down 17.5. Now I see it in big, because you've just looked at it and gone, it's exactly between the two, so therefore 17.5. I wondered why you got 17.5.
Right, so basically we've measured the angle, right? We have got it on diopter as well, but most people accept, and it is accepted, that an actual measured angle is better than a calculated one, because accelerometers inside phones need calibrating, and then it starts getting electronic, and a load of nonsense like that the ballers can argue in their favour and make it try and look that we're not in some way credible. That's bullshit. We've measured it. This is it's actually a measured angle, and because this is horizontal, it doesn't matter that the frame. Basically, if he puts a deduced horizon in, he has to argue that this bubble is not in between the yellow line, in between the two double lines. So basically, we can see that the angle. There's the 20 marker. There's the 10-degree marker. There's 15. So you got 15 there. You got 20 there, and the angle reader sits basically in the middle of the two of them. So it's kind of 17, 18. I don't really give a shit. It's below 20, and that's the bottom line. That's what all we need, and it's about 17. Okay, so you can interpret that any way you want, but it's measured. So there's none of this deduced angle bullshit going in the rumpus. You're not manipulating the evidence. It's measured, and if you disagree with it, come back and measure it yourself.
Compare out the rest, because it actually shows the full. I've got a full wide angle showing. It's not just this measure.
So basically, this is the tape measure sitting on it. And it's windy as hell. So obviously there's the tape measure is being thrown around. So there's the tape measure going right up. And basically when you pull that tape measure taut, it pulls it to the exact angle that we're at. So but what Nathan's doing now is running backwards to get to another angle. And there we see it. So that angle is 17, maybe 18. No more than that. And we know what the measured the distance is as well, the hypotenuse, which you can't even argue with. But this is the essential bit. This is where the ballers try and argue the angle. They want this. They want wiggle room in this angle. Well, bullshit. You're not having it at all. There is no reason to be arguing with the angle because it's measured, not calculated with maths. It's actually measured, and that's the time of the thing. It was just after 12:15, and there's the water level. And as you can see, it's pretty much touching it. It would have been touching it if we'd have been a couple of minutes earlier, but it's as close as we can get it given the scenario, the time of the day. So that is the actual water level, Miles, not the mean sea level that you've calculated and then claimed it was the actual water level. That's nonsense. So the rumpus has basically fudged this photographic evidence because he doesn't like the 20 degrees. He's put in this deduced angle to give it 30 degrees to support his mate at 28.5, which is then rounded up to 30. That's falsifying the evidence, rumpus. That makes you worse than Miles for exaggerating it in the first place, because you're faking evidence to support your mate when there's no scientific reason to do it. This is credible. It's vertical. I'm happy with it. Your deduced horizon is nonsense. It's fake. It's fraud. It's faking it. You're fudging it. You're fudging the evidence to help your mate. There's no scientific reason to do it. You're a fraud. You're dishonest, rumpus. And I'll call it to your face. Do you agree, Nathan?
Well, once I didn't realise the extent that he fudged it. But yeah, that's quite a large chunk of fudge right there.
Yeah, he's added 10 degrees because it supports his mate. That's the bottom line. Now, I'll show you what the effect on the actual triangles is. So here we have it's an interactive triangle. You can go to visualtrig.com, and on the visual trig, it gives you an interactive triangle, which is great because it shows the effect of what happens. 94 was the measured angle. It's on the camera.
Measured feet. Sorry,
94 feet, yeah. 94 feet is the measured hypotenuse, right? Down to where the water level actually was.
I've not seen that yet. That's on your camera, isn't it?
Which you haven't got the lead for. The lead's at home. Doesn't matter. It's 94 feet. We can't prove that right this minute because it's on the camera and we haven't got the lead to get it off the camera. And we haven't got any other way of getting it off. But it doesn't matter. It's black and white. We can prove that. So the hypotenuse measures 94. There's no arguing with it. It's black and white. They can't wiggle room with it. The angle down here, they can. They can fiddle around with it.
Hold on a second. How close to the top of the cliff did you take that measurement? 94. Was it right on the
edge? It was touching it. It was stuck into the floor.
Touching the edge?
Yeah.
I think I've got the lead, you know, for the camera.
Leave it for now.
Too late for now. We're live. we could prove it apparently, but we're not going to because
we'll do it later. We'll do it later. For the moment, it doesn't make any difference. This is where they want the wiggle room. So basically, the 94 is fixed. But what you can do with this is you can play around with it, and because it's interactive, you can show what the effect is. So basically, it basically measures 17.5, right? That's what I'm claiming it is measured at, right? But we'll put it up to 18 just because, well, because that's what they're going to do. But even at 18, 29 feet, 29.05 feet, that's down to the actual water level, and Miles claimed 40, right? He claimed 12 meters.
Well, no, he said 15 meters, but he'd be on the conservative side and say 12. So obviously Miles's conservative side is, what's that in a percentage?
Miles's words,
30% more?
Miles's words were 10 feet, 14 feet, 15 feet. I'm going to be on the conservative side.
Not in the slightest bit conservative.
No, it's 25% greater than what it actually is. Miles said he was 40 feet above actual sea level. He wasn't.
Good job he didn't use 15 meters, eh?
Yeah, isn't it? Isn't it a good job that conservative guess, Miles, was actually helping you? Because if you had gone to 15 or 14, it would have been even worse for you. So your words in that video, I'm going to say 10, 14, maybe 15. I'm going to go conservative and say 12. They were his actual words in his video. Obviously, that's on my computer at home. I can't play it live now. But don't worry, we'll be coming back to it. But it means that if he'd have gone any higher, it would have been even worse because he was no greater than 30. Now, I said 29 was actually what he was at. They were my words. He's no greater than 29. I said 25, 26 the other day because it depends on what the actual water level was. It depends on how far down the beach was. I was a little bit out. I was 3 feet shy, but I said he was no higher than 29, and it measures exactly 29. So considering that Rumpus thinks that my calculations are inaccurate, and so does Miles Davis and Geo Strieber for that matter, and we'll be coming back to you in a bit, Geo Strieber. You can your drinks are on the rocks at the minute. Geo Strieber will be coming back to you for the next hangout. But for the moment, this is the bottom line: 94 feet, black and white. You can't change that. It is what it is. It measures what it is. It was measured with a tape measure, and unless you're going to answer, then that's black and white. There is no wiggle room. The measured angle is 18 degrees.
I thought we said 17.
No, well, 17, but we'll give them a degree just because.
What is it at 17? So 27 feet.
So
But if you wanted to split the difference and say 18, then fair enough. But so it's still under 30 feet, basically. So
yeah.
Shout out to, from memory, Steve Anthony, who I think guessed 10 feet.
Yeah, Steve Anthony was not far off.
Not far off.
Everybody else that was sucking Miles's knob, no, you're miles out. Now, Miles claims 40 feet was where he was at. That means that the angle that he needs is 25. Now, there is no way on God's earth that that angle is anywhere near 25. It's down to 17. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the thing again. Oh, did I put it on the thing? Oh, I'll have to show it in the video so you can make your own mind up.
Haven't you got a still of it?
I did have a still. I didn't actually. I'll have to get it out of the video.
No, I took a photo of it.
Here we go. What did you do with the photo?
It's just in your Skype, I think.
Okay, so let's get it back off Skype.
There you go.
Is it coming through?
What the hell?
Why is that not?
Try that again. No, that one. That's it.
Right.
Why isn't it loading? Ah, forget it. It's been on camera. I'll use it as a bloody thumbnail if you like.
Right, what I'll do is right click, show in folder. Telling me it's one of these.
Double click it, it should load.
Yeah, just double click it. It should just exactly.
Desktop. Let's call it 1, 2, 3. Mickey, don't you even think of start barking. Mickey.
Gonna be a camera collapsing in a second. If we lose broadcast, you'll know why.
So we're looking for 1, 2. Oh, there we go. I did say. Actually, I did save it.
There it is.
But I haven't moved it over.
It's labelled 17 degrees.
Right. So you can interpret this any way you want, but this is actually measured. The bubble is.
Anthony, zoom it in.
Shut up. Mickey, shut up. Right, there's the angle. Right, basically, the first thing is the bubble between the two lines? And the answer, of course, is yes. Mickey, shut up. The bubble is in between, okay? So then there's the angle reader, and it's pointing just on that stitch line there. There's the 15, there's the 20. Call it 18.
I'm going to call that 18, not 17.
But it's not 19, and it's certainly not 20. So I'm going to go with 18.
Fair enough.
So then when we go back to the angle calculator, Shut up. 18. 29.05 feet, which is basically the highest he could possibly have been. Mickey, move. We have somebody walking past. Do you mind? Thank you.
Love it.
Mickey, move. Anyway, the point is, as long as that angle reads whatever it reads, they can't argue with it.
I mean, the bottom line is, you went and measured it at 20, and it was 20. Al K went and measured it at 20, and it was 20. I've gone now and measured it down to the shore, and it's 30. So, you know, these are all consistent. So where the hell are they getting 40 from?
They've got it from mean sea level, and then he's calculated an adjustment.
No. That's not what he said. He said he was taking it from the level of the water.
That's right. But what he did to get the level of the water was he used mean sea level and then deduced off numbers. That's how he got his number.
So he's saying that's the height above sea level.
Yeah.
Above my... No. The words he used were, that's the height above the actual water. That's what he said.
That's right. But when you listen to what he actually did in your hangout, to get that height above water, he used mean sea level and then minus stuff off. That's how he got to it. So that's why it's lies. He wasn't using actual sea level. He was using mean sea level.
Oh, that's the lie.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So he said, I'm giving you what I'm off the water. And he isn't. He's nowhere near off the water. He's added an extra 10 feet arbitrarily.
Correct.
For no reason.
Now, interestingly...
But he's being conservative, remember?
Now, yeah, he's being conservative. Now, interestingly, 29 feet. Look at the value down here. Look at the value on Google for that. 29 feet. Now, is that a coincidence or what? Now, I'm not being funny, but there's the height he's actually at. 29.05. Right? And look what it says on Google. 29 feet. So make of that what you will. But tomorrow, when we come back tomorrow, we're going to be addressing the 35-foot elevation and the 52-foot elevation. And I think GeoStream is going to be getting some of his words shoved right up his hoop, because GeoStream is lying as well. Well, not lying, but GeoStream was mistaken.
So Tim Osman says this doesn't prove flat Earth. No, it doesn't prove flat Earth. But what it does prove is the people who are countering our arguments are misrepresenting their arguments.
Well, they're falsifying evidence to support their friend, who their friend in the first place was 25%. Inaccurate with his estimation of his height above sea level, and then declared that the turbines supported the spherical nature of the Earth.
I mean, the bottom line
25% out.
The bottom line here is we've already won. You know, we've presented two models, one that completely fails, which is the globe, and one which is a flat Earth model, which absolutely works. And beyond this point, we're now proving to the audience that along this path, along this merry dance that we've been led, we've been lied to, and so has the audience.
There is context here, though. Miles claims he was at 40 feet when he's actually at 30, right? Now, 40 feet was 5 feet higher than what this value is here at 34, 35. So Miles was saying he's at 40 feet, which is like higher than where I said I was at 35 feet, and I am clearly higher than him in real world. So Miles has then claimed that he was actually above water, and when he did his maths on it, to get to the height above water, he used mean sea level and then an adjustment. So that's not above water, that's to see mean sea level, plus an adjustment. But the point is, Miles is somebody that's trying to discredit me by claiming that by being at this elevation of 40 feet is higher than what I claimed at 35. It's nonsense. This is consistent with Google Earth, and it's consistent, and it's not consistent with Miles's claim. Miles exaggerated it by 25%. 25%. And he claimed he was being conservative. So, and then from there, Rumpus has then done this nonsense thing where he's basically got no scientific justification whatsoever for falsifying this evidence to support his mate. So basically, Miles lied, then Rumpus faked evidence to support Miles, and basically Rumpus's crime is worse than Miles's. That's really the position. So really, Rumpus has got to, he's got to apologise. And Miles really needs to take down his video or correct it. Either way, he wasn't at 40 feet above actual sea level. He was at 30 feet above actual sea level, 40 feet above mean sea level, or whatever.
Miles should keep his video so people can see the error between his and yours.
And so the bottom line is, somebody that was trying to discredit me has just been proven to be lying. No, Miles was lying because he said he was actually above the water, and he wasn't. He was calculating it above mean sea level, and and he knew it was advantageous to him from the Ordnance Survey map to quote that number, when he knew that Al K had already measured it at 20 feet. He measured that mound at 20 feet. The only bit extra was the bit below. That's nonsense.
Tim Osman thinks we're quibbling over 5 feet for some reason.
Tim can't do maths. So
simple arithmetic, Tim Osman.
So let's just for the benefit of Timothy.
So he said 40. That says 30.
Yeah, the measured distance between the two observations is 94. The angle was somewhere between 17.5 to 18. We're going to go with 18. I wanted 17, but when I've zoomed in on it, I agree it's 18. But when you do the trigonometry on it, the maths, logic and reason maths, turns out that it was less than 30, which is what I said that Miles was, and I said that Miles had exaggerated his claim. That was on the back of knowing that Al had measured it at around about 20 himself, and he dismissed that, and he went with Ordnance Survey instead, because Ordnance Survey was much more on his side. Now, just so happens that 29 feet, around, call it 30 feet, it's the same value that Google gives it for the same place. So the reality is this: Miles lied. He dismissed Al's evidence to the contrary because Ordnance Survey it suited his position better. He then used the maths to claim that he was above actual sea level, but then did an adjustment to the mean sea level adjustment to make it above actual sea level, but quoted it as actual, and it wasn't. He was referencing mean sea level, which is obviously we have no idea where mean sea level is because it's a datum point it's a hypothetical datum point. We just don't know where that is. There is no marker in the sand that says this is mean sea level. So Miles is telling us he's doing one thing, but he's doing something completely different, and rejecting Al's already given citation of 19 feet. But Rumpus has then come back and Rumpus has faked the evidence to support his friend. So Rumpus has got this photograph, which was the proof of the 20-degree angle, which I knew that they would fudge around and play around with. So he's put in this deduced horizon to support him. No, there is no science to do that unless you're going to dismiss that this is not accurate as vertical, and it's as close as damn it. But certainly this deduced horizon is wildly off. And basically, he's falsified evidence to support Miles, holding his hand. That's basically what he's doing. But when we come back today to measure it, this 17 degrees is actually what the angle was down to the water at the time, and there's no getting around that. Whatever that angle, whatever that measurement is there, I'm going to say it's 18. I'm happy with 18. But when you do the trig, you end up with a position where you have this 18, 94. There he is, 29 feet, which is the value that I said it was the absolute worst he could possibly be, and it depended on the slope that was on the beach. It turns out that Miles was wrong. He was lying. He was exaggerating by 25%. He dismissed Al's evidence because it didn't support his position. And then, what's his face? The Rumpus has falsified and manipulated evidence to support his friend with no scientific reason to do so. And it's literally fraud. He's faked it. So, Miles, Rumpus, you two are both charlatans as far as I'm concerned. And anybody that supports Miles, you're just dick holding. That's what you're doing. Nothing more.
So these dicks in the chat who are saying, take a picture from the shoreline. So you guys, do you not understand the part where your model of the Earth completely failed at the observations that have already been taken? Do you just want to ignore them and tell us that they're not good enough observations because they're not close enough to the shore, even though they absolutely obliterate the globe and are easily accountable for on a flat plane, which has been demonstrated to you guys? You're just going to ignore that and tell us to go to the shore? No. Account for the lighthouse that isn't there, my friends. Tim Osman, the lighthouse that isn't there, the lighthouse you can't see that necessitates the entire island being a bloody hologram. Explain that, my friend. Don't ask us to take shots from the shore. Explain the shots that are already in evidence that demonstrate unequivocally that the Earth is flat. Explain that, my friend. Don't ask us to get shots from the shore. Getting shots from the shore just means you'll cut off all the shit that you like to claim is curvature. And all that stuff that you're cutting off from the bottom by being at the shoreline is explained by 3 words: circle of confusion. Go Google it.
And Slice Arcane admits that it is the obstruction on the horizon in them circumstances, formerly known as curvature, is actually mirage. Sly admits it, and I'll be showing that later on. But for the moment, we're happy to discredit Miles because the bottom line is here, with regards to Miles's assertions to the contrary of the real world, is that Miles essentially was claiming that this elevation at 40 feet basically was higher than where I was at my 35 feet elevation, just a little bit up here, somewhere it was around here, I think it was there it was. But he's claiming that he's at 40 feet right, against what Google says at 30 feet, and it what do you know? Turns out to be 30, and then basically Miles is saying that he was higher than what I was. So obviously one of us is lying. So I've had to call Miles a liar because I know that A, he wasn't taller than me in the real world, and B, there is absolutely no way that the value that he cited for 40 feet or 12 meters above the actual tide at the time is what he claimed. The actual tide at the time, this was not 12 meters or 40 feet. It wasn't.
No,
Miles is lying.
No chance, no way.
No way.
No
Miles
way.
is lying.
I saw that with my own 2 eyes. It's not what Miles claims.
So,
sure.
I don't think that this is where the tide was anyway, because at high tide, this big rock gets covered. Unless you can prove otherwise, Miles, you didn't put it in your video. It wasn't contemporaneous. You can't prove that this was taken at the same time. We can't disprove that it was taken at the same time. However, that's not consistent with the high tide that we had today. Our high tide came up to, over, and beyond. Okay? So, Miles, you exaggerated by 25%. This is not taken at the same time. Neither of us can prove whether it is or not, but you didn't put it in your video. That's terrible on your part.
So, whose position is this? Whose camera is that?
I think this is Al K's camera.
So Al K and Miles are at this observation. So all of you guys in the chat, you need to get on Miles' case and tell him, if he's got shore there, why hasn't he got his camera in the tripod? They're all telling us we should take photos from the shoreline. Well, get on to Jesse Kozlowski, who takes his observations from about 300 feet. Get on to Miles Davis, who's obviously decided to go up a, what was the word he used? Conservative 40 feet, my ass. Yeah. So why is he up 40 feet in the air, guys? Why isn't he on the shore? Yeah. Well, I'm going to encourage every single person who's taking any of these observations right now. Don't go on the shore. Get higher.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Don't listen to these dicks like Sly Sparkane and They Lie Ohio, who basically want to put a great big line of refraction in your image so they can claim its curvature.
Correct.
Unlike the images that you get from a little bit higher up, where you can see down to the bottom. If you guys want to claim that we can't see the shore, no problem. We'll do a special edition. We'll get Chris involved and we'll explain to you something that you're obviously incapable of Googling, which is the circle of confusion.
But to be honest, I'd just call you all distracting bullshitters because it's irrelevant to the point we're making. The point we're making right now is that Miles exaggerated by 25%, claimed it was being conservative, dismissed Al's measured, this basically calculated guess, which we supported, and then got what's his face, the rumpus, to falsify and manipulate evidence to support his assertion that in some way that my angle 20% was in some way not credible, and he's put in this nonsense deduced horizon.
Well, there's something else Rumpus did that was quite interesting that Chris pointed out. Again, check out the after show from the demonstration we did for the flat Earth model of the Isle of Man. So we did an after show. Can't remember the exact title now. Chris pointed out a couple of things that Rumpus had done in his assessment of the Isle of Man, which is to say that he put the 0 mark
on the horizon.
On the horizon. So in essence, he's drawn a straight line from St. Bees to the base of the Isle of Man with a straight line. He's essentially proved a flat Earth in his demonstration by putting the shore at 0. So all you guys in the chat that are saying, show us the shoreline, go and ask Rumpus why he drew a straight line from St. Bees to the shoreline and put it at 0, rather than dropping it down to a realistic level. Why would you do that? If you think you live on a sphere, wouldn't you naturally assume that the actual point that the Isle of Man was below the bulge that you can't see through? It just seems to me like he's ignored that particular detail.
Rumpus, at the end of the day, what Rumpus is doing is falsifying evidence to support the narrative. He's getting stuff wrong, and he can't do stuff that needs to be able to be done to be able to prove that we live on a ball. Because one of the things that he did was when he was calculating his bearing angles, he used straight lines. And if you're going to use bendy lines to bend over the curvature, you've got to use bendy lines to go around because everything fans out. And we showed that with the grid lines when we put the grid lines on.
Yeah, in essence, if you're going to calculate straight lines left and right, then you're ignoring the curvature of the Earth when doing those calculations. It seems the only curve calcs that seem to come into effect are on the vertical axis. Nothing's taken into account on the horizontal, even though, as Anthony points out, the Earth fans round. The Earth is a globe, regardless of where you're standing, and in every direction. So if you're going to ignore it on the horizontal, you're essentially proving the Earth is flat in that demonstration. If you want to argue about the vertical only, You're just arguing for a fraction and co-opting it into curvature. It's horseshit. There is no curvature.
And the minute you start arguing for standard refraction, you're essentially saying that everything's a hologram. And if the minute you start saying it's a hologram, we'll start calling you a fantasist, because basically if you're telling us that what you're seeing is not there, that means it can only be a hologram. It is not real. So what is it? Is it there because we see it the way that we assert it is, because it's there?
And the way we can demonstrate that it is exactly measurable and as per the picture, as demonstrated on a flat Earth model. So you can draw straight lines to the height of Snaefell and get an accurate measurement, or any other part of the island. And you can do the same as, coincidentally, the Rumpus does when he's on the horizontal axis, and calculate exact distances on that axis. So you can do all of those things in a flat Earth model. In the globe model, it fails on its arse because you obviously account for it being a flat plane when you're looking on the horizontal axis, as Rumpus has demonstrated several times now. And again, in putting the 0 point at the horizon. Again, he's actually demonstrating that the Earth is flat in that. So you guys are happy to demonstrate that the Earth is flat, but you're only content to concede it's horizontal. You guys never see any curve, right? That way. We just see things getting obscured. Well, that's easily explainable away with refraction and the actual effects that are taking place, as opposed to the Earth curving away from you. Only in that axis, only up and down, never side to side. You can take perfectly normal straight lines. You can ignore all the million lines of glass that are in our atmosphere, according to Rumpus. They go out the window when you're measuring just looking that way or just looking that way. They only take into effect if you're measuring the height of a mountain, which we've blatantly got clear line of sight with, even on the globe. Yet you still have to do an arc calculation for it, because in essence, because you're doing that on the vertical aspect, everything's a bloody hologram. Nothing's where you think it is. It's all in a totally different location to the actual position. Why? Because you've got to do an arc calculation, because you've got to account for curvature that isn't there. Simple as that. Total bullshit. You guys can believe it all you like. It's nonsense. You're essentially lying to yourselves with mathematics. There is no visible curvature. There's non-demonstratable. There's a little bit of obstruction. That's it. If there is curvature, you need to explain to me very simplistically why you aren't accounting for it when you look left or right. Because you're not. Rumpus isn't doing it. He's taking pixels. He's then drawing a straight line after calculating an angle, just like a surveyor would do that made those maps he's using to get his elevations from. The only difference being they'd do the same thing with the vertical. They would also take straight lines of sight. Coincidentally, exactly as demonstrated in the QED model of the flat Earth. It's straight lines, just like you see. We see in straight lines. We don't see in arcs. But you're calculating for them for the holographic world that you think you live in, because you're all bonkers and there is no curve. But you've got to make yourselves think there's curve, so you lie to yourself mathematically. It's ludicrous, but there we go.
So bottom line is, Miles exaggerated by 25%. Rumpus faked evidence or fudged evidence to support the narrative that Miles put out there, because anybody attacking Miles, oh, we can't have that. So it was Cat Earth in Rick's channel saying that I shouldn't be attacking Miles. I don't think so.
We're attacking the evidence. We're not attacking Miles.
Oh, I'm attacking Miles because he's a liar. He's dishonest, and he exaggerated by 25% based on what he claimed was a conservative guess, and it wasn't. It was a guess. It was a reckless guess.
It wasn't a guess. He calculated it in his video.
Yeah, to mean sea level.
He did an extrapolation after very specifically saying that this is the height above water.
Yeah.
There is the lie.
But then calculated it based on mean sea level. That was the lie.
And overestimated it whilst saying it was conservative.
But this is on the back of knowing that his mate Al K with a 16.5-foot rod stood there, and it was basically nearly all the way up there. Not all the way, I grant you that. However, it wasn't that far off. And from that, Al's own words were, you'd have to say it was at least 20 feet. I agree with him. We measured it at 20 feet. 19.5, we added an extra foot on for the little bit that I wasn't quite at the bottom. I agreed with Al. 20.5 feet. That is the height of that mound. So we overestimated it, right? But the biggest crime of the two isn't really Miles doing that. I mean, Miles is bad enough, but it's the Rumpus changing evidence to support the narrative. That is fundamentally dishonest because there's no scientific reason to do it. He fudged it towards the favourable angle that he wanted. And if you think I'm lying or you think that I've done something wrong, come and prove it. You're not going to get any different to what we've got. You're going to have to fudge it. You will have to fudge it to prove anything other than what we've shown.
But in essence, this is just a debunking, isn't it? We've got a guy who's asserting the Earth's a sphere, and he's basically out fudging his evidence to try and assert that. And that's what we're here debunking. So, in terms of people saying, why aren't you proving flat Earth? Well, this is part of a debate that's been ongoing, and people on the debate are obviously out to prove the Earth is a globe. And in the same way they've tried to attack Anthony for asserting what Google states on their model, we're actually attacking somebody based on what they have asserted on an actual observation that has also been measured by people on your side at exactly the same point on the same day. Correct? They weren't there at the same time, right?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, either way, these two are in collusion. They certainly share each other's information and images. So to not know is, reckless.
On the one hand, Al K is given the value at about 20, right? But Al K says that if you watch the rest of the video in context, he starts talking about measuring the steps. I don't care about the steps. Got nothing to do with it. We're talking about the actual measurement of the height. And you claimed it was 20 feet, right? That's what you're governed by. That's what you said. You're bound by it. However, we agree with you. That's what we've measured it to be, and we've agreed with you. So on the one hand, we're not really having a go at you because you actually said the same value that we said, and we agree with you. But you tried to change the context by saying it was to do with the steps, to do with the building to the left. It's nonsense. Don't give a shit. I want to see what that actual level is of that mound, and you said about 20 feet, and we agree with you. But that really goes against Miles. So Al's been relatively honest, accidentally throwing his friend under the bus. Rumpus has fudged evidence, basically to try and support his friend. And between the two of them, Rumpus and basically, if you stand by Rumpus or you stand by Miles, the liar, Davis, you're as bad as Rumpus for falsifying and faking the evidence. It's that simple. Miles is a liar. Rumpus has falsified evidence to support the narrative. They're both dishonest. It's that simple.
Yeah, this is our competition. So, in the same way they want to discredit Anthony every way possible, discredit Ranty every way possible, discredit me in the debates every way possible. Well, so far not so good. In reality, they're the guys that are basically guilty of all the things they're accusing others of. Yeah. And we're here to demonstrate that. People may not like it and may say, oh, well, you're quibbling over a few feet. Well, no, we're quibbling over a 25% increase on an assertion that claims we're on a globe. And it's complete nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. And these are the people we're battling with when we present our evidence. And we need to show them for what they actually are.
And if it was me, if I had done something where I exaggerated my claim by 25%, what do you think Germ Panda would have done? Germ Panda. What would he have done? If he had the evidence to prove that I had exaggerated my claim by 25%, what do you think he would have done? Well, what's going to happen against Miles? There's not going to be a single baller that calls him out. Nobody's going to say, are you sure you're right? They might do it in private, but they definitely won't do it in public. No, can't, because they never concede any points. They never back down over anything, ever. The only one that will be maybe Rumpus. He seems a little bit more honest than others, even though he's falsified and fudged evidence. But Rumpus is going to have to explain why he's done it, because there was no scientific reason to do it.
I can answer that. I mean, from Rumpus, why exactly have you given an artificial horizon to increase that angle by another 10 degrees? It makes no sense. It's blatantly bullshit.
Oh, I'll show you the reason why. I know why he's done it.
Application,
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is the reason why Rumpus has done it, because if we pull up the triangle thing, basically, we can manipulate this thing here, this angle here, this height of the observer, which is what Miles was, by basically putting the values up. If we increase that to go towards 30 degrees, which is what he wants it to be, keep going a bit more. There we go, 30 degrees. That puts him up to 47.
Well, no, he's talking about a measurement that was to the top of that mound.
Sure, but he put
that 94 feet that you've got in this current triangle is to the shore. To the
it was 55, wasn't it? That was the value. So if we put that at 55, I think it said. Let's check what he actually put. 57 feet. So let's go back to that. So
he wants 30 degrees, doesn't he?
I measured it at 20. Stand by that. It was basically, there was a vertical in the picture. But Rumpus didn't like that because it only gave a value of 19. Rumpus knows that if he can fudge this angle and make this angle a little bit bigger, it supports his friend and pulls away from supporting me. So watch what happens when we move this up. Move this up to 30 degrees. Keep going, keep going, keep going, which is nowhere near 30 degrees. Keep going, a bit more, and then we get to 30. See how that becomes now 28.
This is just for the mound, though.
Yeah, this is for the mound, and that means he's only got to get 10 feet from the water,
which is
not
what
20.
it is. So in other words, it puts Miles's figure back to what Miles stated, and it's still nowhere near what it actually is.
But it relies on this this measured angle being accurate, and he said that I was wildly inaccurate. So what he's had to do for my incompetence, he's had to put in this deduced horizon, basically A, and claim that I was being wildly inaccurate, but B, to make this value 20 into 30. And that's the only reason why he's done it. But to do it, he's had to claim that I was wildly inaccurate. Well, he hasn't even used the frame of the picture of the video that I used. So he's used a different frame where it isn't as vertical, because when I did it, it was bang on vertical. So basically, Rumpus is fudging the evidence to support the narrative. Miles lied. Miles was not at 40 feet. Miles was at, well, at best 30 feet, 29 point something. But Rumpus has falsified this evidence, and he didn't know whether it was right or not. The only thing that...
Couple of questions for Rumpus. Why have you falsified this evidence to help Miles Davis out with his lie? That's the first question. And secondly, why don't you do an arc calculation when you've taken your per pixel measurement?
Well, in addition to the first one, why have you done it to help your mate? The only reference that he's got of the horizon here is that, but that is actually land. It isn't. That's land going down to.
Yeah.
That's actually land going down to the water, and it's not even. It is the horizon, but it's not level because it's not the water line. So he hasn't even got a reference, but he doesn't know that. So I want to know, why did you put in a deduced horizon in the first place? Was my vertical that I actually put in my video or in my calculation, was it not vertical enough for you, Rumpus? But even if it wasn't, are you really trying to tell me that my vertical was out by 10 degrees?
I mean, it's irrelevant anyway, because basically now we've actually measured down to the sea, and what we get is the same as Rumpus gets to this point with his adjusted horizon. You know what I mean? So basically, he's saying it's 30 feet to the top of this mound, or to where this erosion is. And, you know, yeah, there's another 10 feet. Admittedly, I probably guessed 2 or 3 feet from the angles that I could see, and I was way out as well.
So basically, Rumpus's position, not Rumpus, Miles the Liar Davis claimed where that person is was 40 feet above the actual water. We measured it down to the point that's at the bottom of the cliff here to 20, and then there was a debate over how much was there actually.
Got an answer. So Brandon Tommy says Rumpus was showing how being off by 10 degrees would make Miles correct. Oh, is that so?
No, he wasn't. Rumpus was correcting what he called my vertical wasn't vertical enough. It was a correction. It wasn't showing the parameters. He was deceiving people by telling people that I was wildly inaccurate by 10 degrees. No, Rumpus. I was maybe 1 or 2 degrees, but not 10. Nowhere near 10. And I don't mind accepting that there might be like a little bit either though. But Rumpus's Miles the Liar Davis claims that he was at 40 feet above the waterline on his conservative estimation. However, this measures 20 by Al K. He measures this at 20. Shut up, squeaking. So the argument then was, well, what was the rest of the value? And obviously, it's nowhere near another 20. So it turns out that to the water level, the actual water level, look at the water level. There's the rock that Miles claimed in his picture. The water level to there, it was another 10 feet. That's what it actually was. So basically, this part here, Miles, that wasn't taken at the same time that you were at high tide. That was taken an hour later, 45 minutes later. That was not where you took the picture. And you can't prove it because you didn't put it in your video because you're a moron. You are a moron. That should have been in your video. You know this. You have to be clear on where you were and what the water was. You have to be clear and you have to be accurate. And you claim that you were above actual water level. You weren't. You were nowhere near above actual. Your maths was based on mean sea level, so you weren't. It's just nonsense. You're done, Miles. You're a dishonest liar. And Rumpus, bloody hell. Your crime's worse than Miles's. Because you falsified the evidence and you've got no reason to do it.
Unless he's about to claim what that guy in chat said, that it was just an example of where you might be wrong. I'll just publish that.
Well, let's go back with what Miles's video says on the actual point. Is that Miles's video? No, that's that one. Let's find Miles Davis. Look, let's have it. Miles the Liar Davis. Davis flat Earth. So in Miles's video, was the camera at 40 feet above water? Oops.
Let's read that.
Get rid of the video skip ad. So I don't remember where it actually was. Here it is. This is the part where we were lining up to do. We were just at this point. We were literally just measuring the actual the hypotenuse. So it doesn't matter that the angle's not right. That's the frame that I used. That is bob on vertical, right? Rumpus didn't use that frame. Rumpus used a different frame that wasn't vertical, and then used that to justify why he changed it. But what Miles says in here, see if we can hear it.
You can't hear it, or the audience won't hear it.
Yeah, look. Oh, let's just go back.
So finally, a little.
So Miles isn't actually speaking at this point. I'm not sure why he's not speaking. Oops.
Well, before we go massively off track.
See, Rumpus hasn't even used.
Check it out. Captain Bullshit says, "Copyright strike these guys, Miles." Hello, this is Miles' video. No, this is our video that Miles has stolen. So maybe we should copyright strike Miles for using your video.
No.
Good idea, Captain Bullshit. We'll copyright strike Miles Davis immediately.
Captain Bullshit, you need to understand what the fair use guidelines are.
What an idiot.
Moron.
He's telling people, he's telling Miles to copyright strike us for using his video. And Miles' video is your video.
Yeah.
So, what an idiot.
But,
Captain Bullshit, man, you are an embarrassment.
Look at this. Miles claims they used the red lines. Yellow line added
Brilliant.
by someone else, not me. He's not even credited Rumpus with it. Why do you think that might be?
Because it's complete horseshit.
Yeah, he doesn't want to throw his mate under the bus. But this is Rumpus's yellow line.
Anyway, let's round this out.
Yeah.
I think we've said enough about
Miles,
this.
you're a liar. Rumpus, you faked evidence to support your friend. You're all a bunch of deceivers. The Earth's flat. There is no curvature. All your friends tell lies. That's the bottom line.
Stop sharing, and then you can hover over the stop button. I'll do a quick round out.
Okay then. Stop sharing.
Brilliant.
Hover over the what?
Over the stop, just so you'll know when.
Okay.
So with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive. Oh, as we go terribly out of focus. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience and to Reg Rhetoric and Anthony Riley.
Sean Hufford
for joining us on this rather impromptu live. What would you call it?
Live from St. Bees broadcast.
Live from St. Bees broadcast. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.